Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all my blessed beloveds out there. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty, and I'm Rusty. I am super excited today because my friend, who will be joining us any minute, Marni, is coming back on for part 2 of our show. And I just got in really, really late last night from a whirlwind drive from Maine to South Florida. There were 39 accidents. And I have to tell you, you guys need to slow the F down. Like when it's raining, you're not Aquaman. You're not going to beat that slide or that hydroplaning. I watched people get airlifted. I saw a few dead bodies. It's not funny. Like 39 accidents in less than 4 hours. It's pretty serious. So you guys need to, try to take care of yourself. And if you don't care about yourself, that's cool. But I don't want to die because you can't slow down when you drive. Just an important PSA. Marni, guess what I got?
Hey, what? Oh, my book. Wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
I was so excited when I got home. I'm like, yay.
Yeah.
All right, my love, what are we talking about today? Because I do have some feedback from your first show that premiered.
Okay. Now, are we live? We're not.
We're very live.
Oh, we're very live. Okay. All right. Whatever you would like to talk about.
Okay. Well, the feedback that I got from your first show, my friends wanted to learn more about the kind of codependency, the trauma bond that you were talking about at the first show. So do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, I talk about trauma bond with my ex-husband, but also with a best friend that I lost, which was very shocking. But then, of course, after you figure it out, you look back at all the red flags and it's not shocking. It's like you could kick yourself. Like, why did I allow this to go on for so long? The trauma bonds are actually very similar. What these abusers do, and I really believe that my ex and this best friend are abusers because they knowingly are hurting you and using you and gaslighting you. So gaslighting is a big part of it with the trauma bond. The gaslighting happens very gradually. Of course, in the beginning of the relationship, or for as long as I can remember, you are a valued participant in this union or in this friendship. You're an equal player, so you think. And then slowly you are made to question yourself, like that your memory is really bad, when really I never had memory issues before. And certainly I haven't had memory issues since, but you're made to believe that you are not remembering certain things. Like I remember with one of the extramarital affair players who was actually over at our house, she even said to me, "Don't you remember, we are really good friends. We met at work and we worked at the same district and we hung out together." And I'm thinking, no, I don't remember that. "Oh yes, something must be wrong with your memory. We would go out to happy hours after work and this and that." And it just did not register with me. But at the same time, you start thinking, did I really forget something? Or, but you almost dismiss it and just move on. And that happens a lot. It happens so very underhandedly. So it's the gaslighting. I would recommend any of your listeners or viewers to watch that old movie, Gaslighting. I mean, it's an old one, but it's a classic where, and abuse and gaslighting is not gender specific. This can happen to men as well as women. I'm just speaking from my own experience, and I happen to be a woman. But in this movie, the husband slowly moves the wife's keys and hides them, or he turns on a light and then slowly turns it down. And she is just little by little questioning her own sanity. And that's kind of what happens. So with the trauma bonding, I think a lot of it starts with just gradual gaslighting, and it is planned over years and years and years. Like I was in this friendship for my whole life, so 59 years. I was in this marriage for 27 years. So it took a long time before my light bulb went on. And so the gaslighting actually happens little by little by little. So you're trauma bonded. Then also with abuse, and it's not necessarily physical abuse, very much mental, emotional, put downs, belittling, that type of thing. With that, you also become physically ill. Like these emotional issues actually affect your fight or flight. Am I saying it right? Fight or flight responses, your adrenaline issues, your autoimmune issues. So by the time I chose to divorce my ex-husband, I was diagnosed. I was never diagnosed with depression, and I was never suicidal or mentally ill. I was never diagnosed with bipolar or anything like that, contrary to what the abuser probably has told a number of people. Never had any of those diagnoses, but I certainly had the diagnosis of osteoarthritis and fibromyalgia. And those are autoimmune disorders. Now, of course, I have no trace of that now that I'm away from the abuser. But so your mental abuse translates eventually into physical ailments that you end up trying to seek remedy, through doctors. Now that I'm, in the Caribbean and away from all of that, I practice a lot of natural healing, just through the sun and natural herbs and essential oils and just living a happy life, I think, is medicine in itself, But so you have these physical ailments, and so then the abuser wants you to quit work. They want you dependent on them totally. You would think that they were proud of you at one point, of your accomplishments. Oh, my wife, is an accomplished teacher. Oh, she earned her PhD and teaches at university. And, at one point, they're proud of your accomplishments, but then they want to take them all away. And they want you, I remember just a few years before I retired, I actually went so far as to follow my ex-husband's direction and call my personnel department to inquire about going on disability. And I'm thinking, well, I don't feel disabled. I feel like I can get up every day and go to work, and I love to go to work, and everything's going fine. But he just keeps on telling me that I'm not capable and I'm not able, and I've got such physical problems. That and that in the meantime, of course, he's letting everyone else know that there's mental issues, which were not there at all. It's just, those are all blatant, bold-faced lies.
When did for me, I'm 11 years post-divorce. And when I go back to New England and run into old people that knew my relationship, I find out so many interesting stories about me. I never knew how exciting I was. Like I never knew that I, did drugs, because I never did drugs.
Right.
I never knew that, there's just all these stories that he's manufactured. When did you find out about the stories that your ex manufactured about you? Was it during or was it after, like me?
It certainly was not during, and it was after, and I don't even think I found them out, because I really don't go back to, for some reason, even though I was close with my whole neighborhood, and like you had talked in our first interview about your I think it was 27 group friends that you were so close to, not one would lend you a dime, and come to your aid. I had the same thing happen. I remember when I eventually even had to move out, one neighbor that I felt I was so close with, but it turns out even my best friend was gaslighting me with her, not just my ex-husband. But I had asked if I could please, I don't have recycling where my apartment was. Could I please put some things in their recycling bin when I come back to the house to fix up the yard or do something. She goes, no, we really don't want your recycling in our recycle bin. And I'm thinking, that was the last time I spoke with that so-called very good friend that I had been so close with all these years. And it's just, it's unbelievable to know what it was that my ex-husband or my best friend told these people. I don't think I even know the stories, to be honest with you. I can only imagine, just from hearing so many other survivors, that you are definitely accused of mental illness, of having bipolar, depression, being manic, being hospitalized, in a psych ward and all that. None of that was true. I was never had any of those. In fact, when I took medication, it was not for depression. It was for osteoarthritis and fibromyalgia. So I can't, so the abusers use half truths. Yeah, you might have gone to the hospital because you needed to have, a colonoscopy, or you needed to have a simple procedure done. But they'll take that you went to the hospital, but they'll twist it with a different meaning. So I can only imagine that those things took place. So much so that one of my children has not talked to me in 6 years. We were close until this child was 20 years old. Yet I was not included in the college graduation, even though I paid for all of it, much more than my ex did, because he lied and switched numbers and everything on the legal documents and got away with it. These abusers get away with forgery and lying and stuff like that. So here, I could not even go to this child's, college graduation, junior college or 4-year graduation. I can't, and this child, well, and like with all parental alienation, which they not only cut you off, they cut off that entire side of the family. So this child has no relationship with their aunt, uncle, grandparents. So there's not even a relationship with their sibling. Okay. So even during that time, and that's a whole nother thing where the abusers isolate the children so they don't compare notes. And don't say, wait a minute, that didn't happen. That's not what I remember. So the children have been separated from each other for all these years as well. So I can only imagine, I can't even imagine what it is that was told to this child, let alone to the whole neighborhood, let alone to my place of employment, or, even my family. Although I'm, still have a relationship with my family, you never know what was even said then. So I don't go back. I went back to a high school reunion, but I spent the whole time with this best friend, and of course saw some other friends, and I don't think I'll be returning. The people that I did connect with are people that I want to connect with. There are a few that I started to connect with, but then there were red flags that, now that I'm a little bit more aware, I'm like, nope, I don't think so. I don't think I want a relationship here. And I've learned to leave situations without closure. I just goodbye, in my mind, goodbye, just, and move on, and only surround myself with people that I can trust, that are honest, that are good. So getting back to your question, it was all after I left the abuser. It was after I left the abuser that I found our house was in foreclosure. I was told for 10 years that it was paid off. I handed over my very high paycheck to his very high paycheck, and didn't think otherwise. I knew he had so many dishonest dealings with money, but I didn't think that our house would be one of them. So all sorts of things I learned after the fact. So if that light bulb moment wouldn't have happened over pizza that one night where he confessed to some very, very wrongdoing, just shocking that he confessed it. But I think a lot of people that are like this do eventually, their mask comes off and the truth is exposed. But I think if that didn't happen, I could have very easily been going along, gaslit, still in the relationship and all of that. So Rusty, I cannot even imagine the lies. Like your lies were that you did drugs but you never did drugs, so I can only imagine, or I can't even imagine what in the heck was said about me. But you know what? At this point in my life, I don't even care, because really those people are not, if they knew me for all these years, yet still believed something that didn't seem right and went along with it, then they're, they're not worthy of my attention.
It was really interesting. Before we moved away from New England, I went to a birthday party and I met a couple of other moms who my ex-husband also met. And we were split up by them. And I found out that he was grooming women before I had even left the house.
Oh, yeah.
Grooming relationships, potentially.
Definitely.
Paychecks, as I call them, before I had even left the house. And one of the moms looked at me and she's like, boy, you're really not the drug addict asshole that your husband let everybody think that you were. I mean, he told our whole office all of these stories about how horrible you are. You're a really good mom.
Yeah.
And I just looked at her and I was like, wow. Like, I was shocked.
Right.
It was beyond betrayal. You marry somebody because you think that they have your back. And in my situation, he just had my wallet.
Right. And they have all sorts of other things. Like I actually, my ex had left our family computer at our house because probably he wanted to spy on me. But he had left the passwords and all that stuff. So I had access to the computer, and at one point I needed to look up an address, and I looked in the addresses, and he had contacts of old girlfriends. He only had a couple girlfriends. I mean, he's not the most desirable, catch. But anyway, when they have a relationship, they don't like to end the relationship totally, because they like to keep you stringing along, because 27 years later, they may need to look you up and connect again. But I found these women's initials and birth dates and addresses embedded into passwords. I can't tell you the number of passwords and secret codes. And we would always call, the children's dad a secret agent man. And that wasn't anything malicious. It was just, he was secretive. He wouldn't share where he was. Why was he gone all weekend? Or why did he always have to work late every night? It just, we would just call him a secret agent man. And of course, boom, it just goes over our heads because we're just busy living our lives. But the secret codes, in fact, in one of the secret codes for one particular person, which also may involve other children in another family, that code said, this woman's code in there, don't tell this woman's code or this woman's code. And I have these printed out, at some point, my children might want to know. They might want to know if they have any half brothers or another family related. They might want to know that kind of stuff. But anyway, what my ex was trying to do, and he's not very bright, and he's also, he worked his way up to the top, but probably not, legitimately, as I helped him out with a tremendous amount of things. But anyway, they and certainly he's not fiscally responsible, because of just how he conducted himself and had all these credit cards and interest. He could care less about the interest he would pay as long as he would get that money up front. In fact, even recently wanted to take a lump sum with his retirement, which over a period of 8 years, I think it was 8 or 9, I had a forensic accountant take a look at this. They said that there would be a loss of, close to $1 million in this 9-year period, if he would have taken this lump sum, he needs this money fast. I mean, he's always needing the cash, fast, doing those cash advances when, you get these checks in the mail, you should really rip up and throw away. And, but he would cash those kinds of things. But anyway, the secret codes that are embedded in all of these things really go to show you that they're working on this. They're getting their backup supply ready and waiting for years and years and years, knowing that at some point you'll either die because they, killed you, or or you will eventually find out, their double, triple, quadruple life and divorce them or whatever it is. They always want to have this backup supply. And definitely I recognized the names. And there were many others that, now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that woman would keep on coming to our house, and she was all dressed beautifully. And she was always like, well, where's your husband? And I just, I don't know. I just thought everyone was good and honest, and that is not the case. So lots of light bulbs, but they were all after the fact.
So I think it's really interesting. I find that gaslighting has become kind of the new way of being. I was talking to the director of the college my daughter goes to, and she was gaslighting me, and I'm like, why are you gaslighting me? Why are you telling me something that's completely not true and distorting the facts?
Right.
And she had no response, obviously, but I find that that's more prevalent, or maybe I'm more aware of when it happens. What do you think?
I think both. That it's more prevalent because, people are, especially the last couple of years, the evil is rising. There's definitely I don't believe it's a political warfare. I believe there's so much deceit and fraud and dishonesty that it's really kind of bringing to light these very, very evil forces. It's really, a war between dark and light, I believe, not what it looks like on the surface. But I believe that it's a combination, that it's happening more, but also that you are more aware. And then one big thing that the abusers do is they project what they are doing onto you. So they will accuse you of gaslighting. They will tell your children that you are gaslighting them when really they are gaslighting the children. Okay, so these people project. In the case of the best friend, when my light bulb went on, she said to me, we were talking about just something that was happening in the news, and she said to me, you are so condescending. And I'm thinking, I am the farthest person from being condescending, but it was clearly the person projecting onto the light, good-hearted person. They will never admit their wrongdoing. They place blame on others, and your listeners might be thinking, well, Marni's placing blame on them, but no, I'm just speaking the truth. I'm actually being very, very objective. I'm not only speaking from my experience, but so many other survivors that I have heard. But projection is a big thing. So they will accuse you of sleeping around, or they will accuse you of misspending the family's money when really it's them doing that. And they project it.
To be the largest thing, especially after this trip. He refuses to pay. By law, he's supposed to pay 50% of medical.
Right.
And he refuses to pay for Chloe, my daughter's braces. He refuses to even have the conversation, even though legally he's supposed to. He's trying to tick down the clock because we've got two.
Maybe he thinks that's optional, but it's not necessarily optional.
It's not optional. So now I have
medical.
I have to bring him back to court. But he pulls up in another new car, and every 2 years he has a new vehicle. And I just looked at him and I'm like, your vehicle and your vanity is more important than your daughter's medical need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's hard, you know, that is the reality. They don't care about their children. Like people think like parents should care about their children. And, and I found that some abusers either never have children, like the best friend never had children, or they had children, but they had them for the wrong reasons, for the show, to make it look like they have the family. But yeah, they're showing up in this new car, like you said. And in my case, I was driving an old beat up family car for the longest time. And actually, I don't even remember getting the oil changed or new tires or anything, where he had the brand new car and we wanted him to have the best of the best because of his position, and his public persona was much more important than mine as a mom, driving to my teaching job, but also driving my kids to sporting events or, different activities. And so, unfortunately, these kinds of behaviors, our children observe them and they can absorb them and kind of think this is how you want to live. And so recently, my son moved to another state because he wanted to, and he had a good opportunity and just a great start, fresh start. And I just spent some time with him and setting up his apartment. And luckily, thank goodness for Craigslist, used furniture, or Goodwill secondhand, and I always was made to believe we didn't have much money when I was married. So I was very good at being thrifty, going to garage sales. That's why, I wrote my book. I've got this book, God came to my garage sale, and there's a reason, I was able to create a beautiful environment on do you call it a shoestring, on just like hardly any money. So anyway, I spent some time helping my son just get a beautiful place, and my life partner, who already gave him an old truck a couple years ago, surprised us and gave him a used truck, and so that he would have a nice ride, something safer and nicer to get around. So anyway, I came back to my Caribbean paradise knowing that, my son is just set up for his new life, and luckily he's away from his alienator, who he's enmeshed with. He's still very much enmeshed with him. And I encourage kids to have a relationship with both parents, but just know who you're dealing with. Try to discern with your own brain of how you feel around this parent and how you feel around that parent, or what does this parent do and what does this parent do as far as, with you. Hopefully, at almost 30 years old, some light bulbs will start to go on. But I can only imagine, because of course, just like you with the abuser, there's current, continued legal harassment. Basically, that's what it is, harassment, filled with lies and stuff like that. And hopefully at some point you'd hope a judge would be able to say, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. But we'll see what happens. But I can only imagine my trip to visit my son and set him up with some groceries and some, Craigslist furniture and Goodwill decorations and stuff like that. Plus my partner giving him a truck. I can only imagine that being turned around and used with lies that, well, she has so much money, she did this or did that, when really that wasn't the case at all. So, I'm just being a mom trying to help a child, get back on their feet and start a new enjoyable life.
Well, and the hardest part about that whole thing, and you and I share this experience, like we were mirrored in so many
Definitely.
ways. Yeah. The hardest part is I have learned and am learning still, 11 years post-divorce, not to take it personally, not to be defensive about it. you're programmed in that relationship to be defensive. You're programmed to speak first and shut everything down so that there's no drama. And deprogramming that takes some time. But even here in this conversation, when you went to just help your kid reinvent his or her life, you're in a place where you are already nervous and you're already worried that the child is going to suffer because the conflict of the ex who's long gone. I mean, you've repartnered. This is
Right.
a beautiful island. Your life is so much better.
Yeah, it is
so much healthier.
Yeah.
And yet here's that little tiny piece with your 30-year-old child who you just wanted to do what you can do.
Sure.
And you know that there's going to be drama coming because the ex just can't.
Well, not just drama, like legal threats, like, you know, legal harassment continuing or added on to the already legal harassment. So yes, that's unfortunate. But when you have lived a life with an abuser, with a you know, someone with, I'd like to say narcissistic tendencies, but really we're talking about sociopaths. And that's what, yeah, they are, but there's different, you know, there's a spectrum, of course, but I mean, the kind of abusers we're dealing with are really sociopaths. They know what they are doing and they are choosing to harm. It's not like, oh, they didn't mean to do something and some people were hurt in the meantime. No. They set out they calculate and plan, and the harm is definitely intentional.
I wonder in your case, with all of the magic numbers and secretiveness, I wonder if he used all of that money to sue them as well. Like, I'm curious more so as to where the money went. I know in my case, my person is very much he's financially, he's like the gold digger. He's the one who has to have all the bright and shiny and fabulous things. And even if we couldn't afford it or we had to work 3 or 4 jobs, which I was the one who did that, he did not.
Right.
You know that story.
Oh, I worked 3 or 4 jobs. Yes.
You know that story. But in your case, I'm wondering if he was suing those ladies as well. Like, is that where the money went, or was he?
I don't know. You know, it's been confirmed that that the possibility of this other family is significant. So there could be money spent there, you know, for that child's college education or whatever. In talking with, because I was contacted, I talked with this mother, and they did paternity testing, they did all sorts of things, and who said that, you know, I raised a beautiful child, and I don't want that child connected, you know, to your ex, you know, which was her ex at one point, you know. So I don't know, there might be some kind of, you know, bad blood there, or like you said, maybe legal threats. I don't know. But also with these abusers, they are very, very, just in general, I'm not talking specific, I'm not slandering anyone or pointing the finger, but in general, a lot of these abusers have huge gambling addictions. They spend a lot of time in cities that are known for gambling. They might have family in those cities. They also, many of these kind of abusers, just in general, spend great deal of money for pornography and could be involved in that kind of thing. They're very, very into technology. They want the latest spyware on everything. They are, so that they not only do they want the shiny objects, you know, the cars, the hotels, the vacations, you know, whatever. They want all the inner workings to be one step ahead. You know, they don't believe, many of these people in general, I'm speaking, I'm not talking about anyone specific, just in general, they believe they're above the law. So they do not believe that the law or rules or court orders or anything applies to them. They believe that they are outsmarting everyone. In fact, they will flat out say, I'm smarter than anyone.
Yeah, mine is, I'm fairly sure mine put a bug in my daughter's cell phone because he was very adamant about getting her a cell phone.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be careful with how we approach that because I don't want to put her in the middle any more than he already has.
Right.
But
Right.
larger than that, he was addicted to porn. I would catch him porn bills all the time. And I'm like,
right.
Does your new wife know about this? I don't know.
Right.
And it's really interesting how.
And actually police departments, like in my case, a computer was brought to police departments who confirmed things, but then also when things, you think you're addressing it legally, like in a deposition or something like that, those can be sealed and put away, like so that they're not opened. What's that all about? Who needs to seal a deposition if they're not really hiding something that could actually be damaging to their career or their other relationships, that type of thing. So it's really bizarre. But yeah, there's tracking devices and that's one thing that they do, especially if the abuser, the alienating parent, pays for the phone, pays for the program, the plan, pays for cable, gives them a computer. A lot of people don't realize there's like a camera, right in there. I have it open because I'm, using it for our conversation and other podcasts, but they will spy on the children. They'll put tracking devices actually on the cars so that they know where they are. It's very hard to get these things off. I mean, it's very, very hard. It means like, you're asking a 16-year-old or however old your daughter is, or, to actually try to investigate, stalking and identity theft and all of these things. I mean, and these people, they not only stalk you and put tracking devices, and I know Apple has this new thing, I forgot what it's called, but my son just received it. He didn't open the package yet. I said, this is a tracking device, just so you know. But it's like something with Apple. I think it might even say Apple Track or something like that, where it supposedly is to help you if you were to lose your phone. That's how it was explained to me. Oh, Mom, if I lose my phone, then I would be able to find it. Well, wait a minute. I mean, how many rooms do you have in your little one-bedroom apartment? You don't have that big of a space where you need to worry about your phone. This could be a tracking device, but it's very hard to, because you don't want to, sabotage the relationship that you'd like your children just to not have to go through the nonsense and pain and heartache and all of that you went through. Unfortunately, these abusers, there's one woman that just wrote this amazing book. It's coming out. Her name is Tracy Malone, and she has a website and a YouTube channel called Narccissist Abuse Support. She is amazing, and she wrote this book called Divorcing a Narcissist. You can't make this shit up. Because it's like mind-boggling. But there's one section in her book that I read, and I don't think it's published out there yet, but it will be out there soon. Highly endorsed, just spot on, great information. Of course, all the stuff we wish we had before we got divorced, but we didn't. We weren't ready for it. Obviously, we had to learn the lessons the hard way. But she writes about the alienators with the adult children, and she talks about how these alienators will steal the children's college funds. They'll take money out of investments that are in their name and put it all in their name and close the children's accounts. I experienced all of that. They will cash in the children's savings bond, or have you cash in the children's savings bond, or make sure that your name is also included in there. But then, of course, you're following the direction and you're handing it over to the abuser. They will also, and this just recently happened too, that I know of, will take out a credit card in the children's name, in the adult children's name. Even if it's an old credit card, they'll refigure it somehow with the adult children's name, and they will rack up 30,000 or whatever, so that the adult child has a terrible credit report because they have this credit card that they didn't even know about until somehow the masks fell and somehow it was revealed. So it's so the tracking is just one thing that they will do. Like your ex is, you think that there's a tracking device in the phone. I'm sure there is. If you think it is, it probably is. But they will wipe these kids out financially as well, and they will sabotage they will call their work and tell their boss, oh, I'm sorry, if my daughter or son, appears a little off this week, he or she's suicidal and is having all these issues because of the other parent. Or, what kind of boundary, crossing are they doing? They're contacting their child's work, or they're sabotaging their school. I know of one situation with Love Dominates, Tamara Sweeney, who has been alienated from her 4 children for 11 years now. She just found out that 2 of her adult children who were in college now have dropped out. So but there are also pictures of these children at exotic islands, partying it up. And so the alienator does not want these children to be smarter or more successful than they are. So they will sabotage them, so much so in this particular case where this abuser encouraged the children to drop out of college.
Yep.
When they just had a year left or something like that, so that they would not be successful, then be dependent. And in this person's case, they would be part of the father's empire and work for this father, and anyone they have a relationship would work for this father, and the enmeshment just becomes a strong ball of crap.
In my case, the ex would go to my job or to my employer and proclaim all kinds of things and cause drama and tension between me and my employer that I didn't even realize was happening until my employer let me go. And then when I let go, my ex would be like, oh, how'd you fuck that up again? And so it was that consistent cycle. And he still to this day tries to find out where I work so that he can continue that behavior 11 years post-divorce, folks.
But he will find where you work, because we went to a lot of trouble to not have anything in my name, to live in a place where mail does not get delivered. We have a P.O. box. We do everything in our power, but somehow, like with the latest legal thing that was sent to me, supposedly served to me, but it wasn't served to me because mail does not come to my physical address. My physical address was put on there so that he can look up, what my house looks like and all of that. It's just, they are sick individuals. So even though you think your ex doesn't know where you work, he probably does know where you work. And or if he doesn't, he's actively searching to try to.
That's the key. He's actively searching. So
they have no life. These are sick individuals. They really are mentally ill, that they obsess, like in your case, even after being on the 4th wife since you divorced him, to still be so obsessed with you, that is an illness. These people are not well.
They're not. And unfortunately, our hourglass has come to an end. And I love and adore you so much. And I'm so excited we're going to be doing this again.
Yeah, we have one more date, one more conversation.
Yeah. And, it is what it is. But I'm hoping that all of you are actually able to take a deep breath, acknowledge what's real and what's not. If you feel in your gut that there's something not right, it's not, right? And there's nothing more to be said about that than go with your gut. Your gut is your personal GPS device. Marni and I lived it and still living it. It's so crazy to me.
Right.
But you know, we're here and we're hoping that this allows you to become more aware of your relationships and what you want in your life, because I certainly don't want that in my life.
Right. And having these conversations are very important because, you know, then it lets other people listening in realize that they're not alone. And maybe it could save them from a few of the things that we wish we knew. So possibly in our third, I don't want to say final conversation, but at least in this series, because, you know, soul sisters connect when we have such similar situations. But possibly in our next conversation, let's take a different approach and talk about the things we do to self-heal or to, you know, self-love and to just live this positive life. It's very important to acknowledge these other things, to acknowledge the deceit and the games they play and the sickness that it is. And unfortunately, not only does it affect us, but, you know, our children are just damaged almost for life. It's very hard to save children that have been exposed for years, brainwashed for years. But next time we talk, which is coming up soon, let's take a turn and talk a little bit about self-care and what we do to have a positive outlook and, you know, start our life over in a way.
And I love the fact that you healed after being away, as did I. So that's a huge conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sounds
Marni,
good.
God came to my garage sale. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. And I love the fact that you were able to help your child. I think that's wonderful.
Oh, it was we had a wonderful time. And now I know that, you know, all I encourage is for him to live an independent, financially independent, emotionally independent life on his own. So now with no truck payments, and he's got a beautiful truck given to him, you know, from my life partner, beautiful apartment in a great location, you know, with lots of opportunities, he can just really begin to just have that freedom to just be his own person and not be under the thumb of the abuser.
So where do we find more information about you if we want to reach out and ask questions?
Well, let's see. I'm no longer on social media. Many of us that have been, you know, stalked and abused aren't on social media. But my reason was I want to spend more time writing, and so I'm off of Facebook and Instagram. But I have my website, which is the name of my book, www.godcametomygaragesale.com, and then under, you know, there's different menu items about the author, praise, which is praise for the book, you know, from these celebrities that have endorsed me. But there's also a happenings section, and I keep that up to date with everything that I'm involved in. Sometimes I post them after the fact because I don't want to give any bad guys a heads up of what city I'll be in or whatever. Yeah, so sometimes it's after the fact that I post it. But I'm also involved in many magazine articles and other podcasts, and I'm a contributing author to 4 other best-selling anthology books, and those aren't fictional. Those are the real deal. I talk about going from an atheist to a believer, or I talk about surviving domestic violence and parental alienation. So I have smaller chapters or essays in these other books. So that's the best way to reach me, is to check out my website.
Terrific. Thank you, Miss Marni. Have a beautiful day.
All right, I will. Take care. Nice to see you as always.
Nice to see you. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rustie, and I'm Rustie. And as you can see, there are lots of layers to this conversation. It is very complex, and it is a gradient. So you can have to the extreme, not so much, maybe in the middle. And how do you navigate that very tumultuous water, I think, is the best way to describe it. But as Marni excelled at, is she was able to rebuild her life in a beautiful island, which I'm kind of jealous because I could use some tropics right now, and get healthy. So to be continued. I'm really excited about this. Know that you're loved, know that you're beautiful, and hey, you've come to the place where your happiness matters. I truly believe that your happiness is number one, and here are the tips, tricks, and tools that you need or could use or could share with your friends, because sharing is caring, right? So that they can live a better life. And that's all I want for you. So until next time.